right, guys, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do some work from this page, and I actually did not hit the record button, I guess, and so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to kind of have to cover up these answers. And actually what I'll do is I'll kind of flip the page back because that's where it's at, and then I can show you the answers. So it says identify all of the points that have an x coordinate of 3 1/3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for that x axis, which is right here, the bottom, and I'm going to go to 3 1/3, and I'm basically going to look and see what letters do I meet. Well, I meet J, I, H, and D. So that is what you are going to write on number 2A, is J, I, D, and H. Okay? The next one says identify all of the points that have the y coordinate of 2 2/3. So I'm going to go look for my y coordinate, which is this line right here, and it says 2 2/3. So here's 2 2/3, and so I'm just going to basically trace along and look to see what letters do I see. Well, I see F, E, H, and K. So I'm going to write those those 4 letters, and I get F, E, H, and K. Alrighty, so now I'm going to move on to the next one where it says on letter C, which point is 3 1/3 units above the x-axis and 2 2/3 unit to the right of the y-axis. We're going to name the point and then we're going to give the coordinate pair. So it says 3 1/3 units above the x-axis. So I want to go above it. And so I'm going to look for 3 1/3 above the x-axis. And then it says 2 2/3 from the y-axis. And so when I look at that 2 2/3 and that 3 1/3, I land on the letter G. And to make that coordinate, remember, I go run, which is 2 2/3, and then I jump to 3 1/3. And so when you write the coordinate pair, you are going to get G is the point, and then the coordinate pair is going to be 2 2/3 and 3 1/3. Okay? Let's go ahead and do number D, which I'm getting kind of to the point. It didn't record, so I have to go back and forth. Eventually, we'll be able to just get that paper back out. It says, which point is located 5 1/3 units from the y-axis? So I'm going to think about my y-axis, which is right here, and I'm going to go 5 1/3 away from it, and I'm going to look to see which point is on that 5 1/3, and it would be letter K. So that is what you need to write for letter D, would be letter K. Alrighty. Then I'm going to go to the next one, which it says which point is 1 2/3 units along the x-axis. So I'm going to go to 1 2/3. And it's what is along. Well, if I notice there's no point right here, so I just need to find which one is going to be along it, and it's going to be letter M. And so on E, you are going to write letter M. Okay, so now is where I have caught that I was not recording. So it says on letter F, it says give the coordinate pairs for each of the following points. So I need to find K. So here's K. And remember, I'm going to do my run and then my jump. So it's 5 1/3 and 2 2/3. So I'm going to write 5 1/3 and then 2 2/3. Okay. You do have to write them in those parentheses so you can see that. So K was 5 1/3, 2 2/3. Next, I need to find I. So I'm going to do my run, which is 3 1/3, and my jump up is 1 2/3. So I'm going to write 3 1/3, and then what did I say? I was 1 2/3. Alrighty. So then I'm going to go to B. Let's see here. Where's B? Oh, there's B. So I'm going to run to B, which is 5 2/3. But do I jump at all? The answer would be no, because it's on the origin, which would be 0. So the coordinate would be 5 2/3 and then 0. So I'm going to write 5 2/3, and then I'm going to write 0. Okay. The next one is C. Okay, now did I run any? No, I didn't, because C is right here. So my X is going to be 0 because it is at the origin. And then when I jump up to it, it's 5 1/3. So this pair is 0 and 5 1/3. Okay. Now what I need to do is I need to look at these coordinates and I need to say what is going to be, locate which letter is going to be at each of these points. So I have 1 2/3, so I'm going to go 1 2/3. And then it says I just want to go up to 2/3. So what letter is that? That would be letter M. Okay, so remember on this one, it's run, then jump. So I'm going to go over how many? Well, 0, but I'm going to jump up to 2 2/3. So I'm going to jump up to 2 2/3, and that's going to give me letter F. Okay, this one's a pretty easy coordinate. I'm going to go over 1, up 0. So over 1, up nothing, and what letter am I at? I am at letter A. The next one is I'm going to run 2, and then I'm going to jump to 5 2/3. So I'm going to run 2, and I'm going to jump 5 2/3, which is going to be N, which I don't have 5 2/3, but I know that the next one is going to be that. So the letter is going to be N. And it says, the next one says, which point has an equal X and Y coordinate? So that means that when I look at it, the X and the Y is going to be exactly the same. So this is kind of where you have to study this. So my X has to be the same. So let's see here. I think I found it. Because if I look here, I want to make sure that the numbers are going to be kind of equal. So what you could do is you could just basically go on your chart and just kind of keep tracing those fingers tracing your finger until you get to it. That makes sure that it is all the same. And when I looked at this, when I ran to 5 and I jumped to 5, I got the letter L. So the X and Y coordinate that has the same one is L, and it is actually going to be 5, 5. Because I ran 5 to the X and jumped 5, which is the Y. Okay. The next one that we are going to do is it says give the coordinates for the intersection of 2 axes. Another name for this point on the plane is what? So the intersection is where the axis meets, and that would be that 0. So that origin or that point is going to be at 0, 0. And another name for this point on the plane is the, and if we come back up here to letter C, it is the origin. I forgot my I there. And if you kind of think about it, origin would be like where you would start something, okay? So that's kind of a good way to remember that. Next, it wants us to plot these following points, okay? So we're going to go ahead and plot 4 1/3 and 4 and label it as P. So I'm going to go 4 1/3, and then it says to go up 4, because remember I run and then I jump, and I'm going to label this as P, okay? The next one, it wants me to label this Q, and I'm going to go 1/3, so I'm going to run 1/3, and it wants me to jump up to 6. But I'm going to have to put 5 2/3, and then 6, and then 6 1/3. I'm going to have to finish that up. So I went 1/3, and I jumped all the way up to 6, and I need to label that as Q. Alrighty. Then the next one is going to be 4 2/3. So I'm going to run 4 2/3, and I'm going to jump 1. So I'm going to trace that up, and I'm going to label this one R. Okay. The last one, it says that I'm going to run 0. So that means I'm not going to move anywhere. And I'm going to go up 1 2/3. So I'm going to run up 1 2/3, or jump up to 1 2/3. And I'm going to label that S. Okay. Then it says, it wants me to know for letter K, what is the distance between E and H, or EH? So I'm going to look right here, E and H. I want to know what is this total distance that is right here. Well, if you count this, you could count this by thirds and go 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5/3, 6/3, 7/3, 8/3. I could say that my distance is 8/3, or when you do 8 divided by 3, it goes in 2 times, minus 6 is 2/3. It is 2 2/3. Okay. Another thing that you could do is you could take what was h, which was 3 1/3, and you could subtract 2/3 from that to be able to get that answer. So you could do that work, or you could just count like I did with the jumps. Alrighty. Since we have just 2 more letters and it is on another page, we're just going to kind of continue going with this one. It says, what is the length of HD? So now I want to find HD. And the same thing, you could either say 5 minus 2 2/3, or I could just count 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5/3, 6/3, 7/3. So then I would have 7/3, or what is that? 2 1/3? 7/3. Okay. Then it says, would the length of ED be greater than EH? Remember, EH from the other page was 2 2/3. And HD that we just solved is 2 1/3. So it says if I look at E, where's ED? Oh, ED, to go this way now. It says, would it be greater or less than EH plus HD? So it's adding these two together. So if I add these two together, that's going to be 4 3/3 or 5. So wants to know, is the distance going to be greater than 5 or less than 5? Well, let's take a look at this. One thing I could do is I could jump at a diagonal, or I could go ahead and subtract. I'm going to jump at a diagonal and go 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5/3, 6/3, 7/3. Would it be 7/3? Let's check our math then. The distance between D is 3. Be 7/3. So honestly, guys, it's not going to be a jump of 5, because even if I went over this way to get from E to D, I'm not going 5. You know, same thing over here. If I'm going from 2/3 to 3 1/3, I'm not necessarily going a total of 5. So this length is actually going to be less. Okay. It doesn't have to tell me by how many, but when I counted it, I knew that it wasn't going to be that 5. It says Jack was absent when the teacher explained how to describe the location of a point in the coordinate plane. Explain to him using point J. So here is J, and I want to explain how to find that J. And what I'm basically going to say is the x coordinate is 3 1/3. You run to that number. Okay. When I look at J, the y is going to be 1/3. So then I would say the y coordinate is 1/3. You jump up and meet the line. So it's pretty simple to be able to use this. And just think about it, guys. This is almost like playing Battleship.